Welcome back to the zoo. We've got Mr. P.M. Romero, co-director of ISHues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Let's take a seat, and then we'll talk more about your issues.
You gotta wait. We didn't explain it. We're gonna go
you didn't
1, 2, 3,
explain it.
and go wah. You'll see. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, wah!
You got it. Nice.
I'm learning quick.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You're a director, so I'm sure you take direction well, too.
I do.
Well, he's not just a director. You're a lot of things, all right? So we gotta fit in a lot of things in this interview. So before we get to the music and some of the other things you do, let's talk about this documentary, ISHues.
Okay.
Why do you spell it that way, first of all?
The protagonist in this film is a singer by the name of Ishmael Herring. And as we were seeking a name for this film, we tried a bunch of different ones, and all of a sudden I looked at his arm. This is a guy who I've spent the last 6 years with, and he had written on his arm, ISHues, I-S-H-U-E-S. And I thought that pretty much just encapsulated, the whole film.
Was it a tattoo?
And for
It was
6
a
years,
tattoo.
you hadn't seen it?
You know, I'd seen it, but you don't pay attention to it. And it just at that moment when we were searching for the name, I was on the floor, he was standing up, his arm was right there, and it just hit me, and I said, that's our name.
Wow.
So, in California, we have a lot of homeless issues. Meaning, there's a lot of them here, a lot of them in San Francisco, just the whole thing in general. I want to know, how is it that you guys started to get in touch, and what is exactly what the documentary is going to show the world? Fighting the system, how? And exactly what kind of issues does he have to face, in life? Because he's also like an artist, so.
First of all, I think it's important that we did not look to address the homeless issue.
Okay.
Ish ran an ad on Craigslist, and that ad said, I am the best singer you've ever seen in your entire life. Pay me $100 and I'll make your tracks sing. So I had to at least check that out. And when he came in, he was right. He had the most incredible voice that you could ever imagine. And I did not know he was homeless for months after working with him.
So you found him on Craigslist?
Why were you on Craigslist? Like, why were you looking for a singer or what?
We don't want to talk about that. But no, really, yeah.
What section were you on, honey?
No.
Missed Encounters? No, the music production.
I can't even lie because it's on the internet, right? No, I was actually looking for a singer, and I had some songs that I wanted a fresh new voice for. And so I was interviewing singers, and that's how I found him. So that started the journey about understanding homelessness, because Ish had lived on the streets for 6 years.
You found out after 6 years that he was homeless, so for 6 years you had no idea?
I worked with Ish for about 6 years, almost 7 years.
Before knowing?
No, it took about 3 months.
Okay.
How did you find out?
Well, there wasn't an aha moment, but there are tells. When someone lives on the streets, they have a lot of challenges. And people who live on the streets don't like to tell you that, especially if they're trying to portray themselves as a professional singer. But simple things, going to a restaurant. Ish came from a background where he was raised in foster care. Every year he was bouncing around from home to home and never really had a stable environment. So going to a restaurant is a foreign situation for him. So things like, hey, how to order off a menu, what is appropriate protocol for eating. So little things like that. And as time rolled on, his trust built with me, and he was eventually comfortable enough to share his circumstances.
That's nice.
What's Willie Pilgrim and the Owls Grow Up?
Well, William Pilgrim is a derivative of a Kurt Vonnegut novel character by the name of Billy Pilgrim from the novel Slaughterhouse-Five. And if you are a fan of Vonnegut, if you are a fan of his humor and his characters, and specifically that one, I felt that was really a great correlation of the character Billy Pilgrim and how he viewed life and how I perceived Ish viewed life.
So is this the name of your group? Is that the name of the musical collaboration?
Is William Pilgrim.
And you are William Pilgrim and he's the Owls Grow Up, or how does that?
We kind of gone back and forth, and that has changed, but I think ultimately Ish is William Pilgrim.
What's the sound that you guys like to play with?
We are Americana, and we are kind of this
I think that's so appropriate that your group would be Americana,
Yeah. But I think
for people that don't know what that means, like Leonard Skinner or like 70s, down home rock and roll. Yeah.
The way that I characterize it are story songs.
Okay.
Songs that actually try to say something, and to me that's Americana. And I think that Ish's background and my background are so dissimilar that shows in the music, and we're kind of like this really ugly stepchild of soul and country, and William Pilgrim is what that looks like.
So
Speaking
that's
of that,
the band, basically.
That is the band we formed to write our music.
Amazing.
what do you think you've learned from Ish through this process, and what do you think he's learned from you, sort of as an artist, but also as a person, maybe?
Well, I have to admit that going into the homeless cause, I knew nothing about it. And I brought with me certain preconceptions of what I thought homeless people were. Drug abuse, personal decision, go get a job, those types of things.
Yeah.
And what Ish has taught me through this process is that it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think the one lesson or takeaway that I have brought from this experience is that homelessness is the result of the problem, it's not the problem.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to fix homelessness, you will always be dealing with Band-Aids. The issues of homelessness run very,
You need
very
to go
deep.
to the root.
Yeah, and those issues are economic, and largely they are born out of where you are born and who your parents are.
Well, listen, thank you for coming here, man.
Amazing. Thank you so
We're gonna
much.
check out the
Thank you
documentary.
So we
for
can
having
see
me.
that in the
Thank you.
documentary
Yes.
a little bit.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome.